There are moments in life that shape us, moments that define who we are and who we become. For me, it was the day I became his father. I didn't expect it, but when life handed me the responsibility of raising my younger brother, I took it. No hesitation, no second thoughts, just an overwhelming sense of duty, of love, of a bond that went deeper than blood. I was 25 when our parents passed away. They were taken from us in a car accident, leaving behind a legacy of love, but also an undeniable void. My younger brother, Caleb, was just 14 at the time. He was lost, angry, and hurt. He was a boy on the brink of becoming a man, but without the guidance, the protection, the security that a father figure is supposed to provide. I was never prepared for this. I had my own life to figure out. At 25, I was still trying to find my footing in the world, working long hours at a job I wasn't too passionate about, trying to build some semblance of a future. But when I looked at Caleb, I knew I had no choice. He needed me. We needed each other. I took him in without hesitation. I rearranged my life, my priorities, my dreams. All of that became secondary. His needs came first. I helped him with his homework, taught him how to drive, showed him how to be a man. We laughed together, fought together, cried together. In those early years, we were inseparable. He was my brother, but also my son in every way that mattered. Caleb never wanted for anything. I gave him the world. I worked harder than I ever thought possible, taking on extra shifts, pushing myself to the limit to provide for him. I watched as he grew into a young man, smart, kind, and strong. He was everything I'd hoped he would be, and more. But as he grew older, something began to shift. Slowly, imperceptibly at first, but eventually it became undeniable. There was a distance between us, a gap that I couldn't quite explain. He became more secretive, more distant, and I found myself questioning if I had done enough, if I had been the father he needed, or if I had been too much of a brother. I didn't see it then, but Caleb was changing. The person I had raised was starting to disappear, replaced by someone else, someone I didn't know. I knew the change had started when he brought her into our lives. Anna. She was beautiful, confident, and the kind of woman I couldn't help but admire. At first, I saw the spark in Caleb's eyes when he spoke about her, the way he smiled when he mentioned her name. I knew he was in love, and I couldn't blame him for that. She was everything he deserved, everything I wished for him. But that was before I realized that Anna wasn't just a girlfriend. She was the beginning of something darker, something I couldn't have foreseen. I remember the first time I met her. Caleb had invited me to dinner, wanting to introduce her properly. She was everything I'd imagined, warm, charming, and effortlessly elegant. She fit perfectly into our lives, and I couldn't have been happier for Caleb. He was finally growing up, finding his own path, and he had someone to walk it with. But as I sat there watching them interact, something gnawed at me. A subtle shift in the air, a slight change in Caleb's demeanor whenever I looked away. He was no longer the boy I had raised, the boy who needed me. He was a man with a woman by his side, and I wasn't sure where I fit into that picture anymore. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and the tension between us only grew. I couldn't put my finger on it, but I knew something was wrong. Caleb had always been my priority, and I had always been there for him, but now it felt as though he was slipping away from me. Anna had taken a piece of him, without my permission, without any warning. It wasn't until I found the first sign that I knew I was losing him. One afternoon, while Caleb was out with Anna, I found an envelope on the kitchen table. It was addressed to me in Caleb's handwriting. But the handwriting was shaky, uncertain. I opened it with trembling hands, the weight of my heart pulling me down as I read his words. I'm sorry for everything. I know this may seem like betrayal, but I need you to understand. Things aren't what they seem. Anna is everything to me, and I can't keep living the way I have been. I have to make my own choices now. I hope you'll understand. Those words, Those few simple words cut through me like a knife. Betrayal. It wasn't that he had chosen Anna over me. It was that he had shut me out entirely. The brother I had raised, the son I had protected, was gone. I confronted him the moment he came home. There was no warning, no hesitation. I had to know what was going on. I needed answers. But Caleb, he just stood there silent like a stranger in my house. "Why, Caleb?" I asked, my voice cracking with the weight of the emotion I could no longer contain. "Why are you doing this? I gave up everything for you. Everything." He didn't respond at first. He just looked at me, his eyes filled with something I couldn't identify. Guilt, perhaps, or shame. Or maybe it was just indifference. "I don't owe you anything anymore," he said quietly, finally breaking the silence. "You raised me, sure, but I'm not your son, I'm your brother, and I have to make my own decisions now." Those words, those cold, callous words, hit me like a slap across the face. I had given him everything. And in return, he was telling me that everything I had done, everything I had sacrificed, meant nothing. I didn't know who he was anymore. And for the first time in years, I didn't know who I was either. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of it all. The pain, the confusion, the betrayal. It was all too much to bear. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. The man I had raised didn't just walk away from me. There had to be more to this. There had to be a reason why Caleb was pushing me away. But for now, all I could do was wait. Wait for the truth to reveal itself. Because I knew that sooner or later, I would find out exactly what had happened. And when I did, I would understand just how far the betrayal had gone. When I signed the custody papers, I wasn't just becoming a legal guardian. I was stepping into a role I had never asked for. Not as a brother, not even as a father, but as something in between. A protector, a builder of what was left. Noah was 11 when he moved in with me. Just a kid, all knees and elbows, with eyes that had seen too much for someone who still clutched a nightlight at bedtime. He didn't talk much in the beginning. He'd nod or shake his head, answer in short bursts, and disappear into corners of the apartment like a shadow. I remember the first dinner we had. I burned the spaghetti. We ate in silence, him barely chewing, me pretending not to notice that he was blinking too fast, fighting the tears. That night, I sat outside his door for hours, just so he'd know someone was still there. But day by day, the silence cracked. He started asking questions. At first, simple ones, where I kept the cereal, what channel cartoons were on. Then, deeper ones. Why did they leave us, Marcus? I never had the right answer, so I gave him the only truth I had. People break, Noah, but we don't have to. From there, our life became a patchwork of new beginnings. Mornings were rushed and chaotic, burnt toast, mismatched socks, backpacks left behind. But they were ours. I took 2 jobs to keep the lights on, drove a beat-up Corolla that coughed louder than it moved, and still made it to every one of his school plays, every parent-teacher conference, every scraped knee emergency. He started calling me bro again, like when we were kids and life hadn't gone sideways. And then came laughter. The kind that spills out unexpectedly when you've forgotten how heavy everything feels. He started drawing again. Comics filled with superheroes that looked suspiciously like me, always rescuing someone smaller, always standing alone at the end, watching over a city that never thanked him. One night, we stayed up building a science project volcano. We made a mess of the kitchen, but when the baking soda exploded into a fizzing eruption, Noah screamed with joy. He turned to me, eyes wide, and said, "This feels like home." God, I could have cried right there. I wasn't perfect. I lost my patience sometimes, forgot things, got tired, but he never threw it in my face. He just loved me back, in his way, and I loved him fiercely, like he was bone of my bone. We created traditions, Friday night pizza and Marvel marathons, Saturday hikes. We had inside jokes and ridiculous nicknames. I'd ruffle his hair and call him Gremlin. He'd roll his eyes and mutter, "You're ancient." But beneath the teasing was something sacred. Trust, shared history, pain turned into purpose. I taught him how to shave, how to shake hands like he meant it, how to apologize when you're wrong, how to look people in the eye. I taught him how to be a man, or at least the kind I was trying to become. He taught me how to hope again. Years passed like pages in a photo album. He grew taller, his voice changed. I watched him become his own person, funny, charming, wildly curious. Girls started noticing him. He'd ask for advice like it didn't embarrass him. He wanted to be a lawyer one week, a chef the next. I just smiled and said, "Dream big, kid." I put my own life on hold for his. I dated, but never seriously. Couldn't risk bringing instability into his life. Everything I did, every sacrifice, every hard choice, it was to give him the shot I never had. The kind of stable, loving environment that could heal him. And for a while, it felt like we had made it, like we had outrun the ghosts of our childhood. I looked at Noah and saw a future, a second chance. I never imagined that very same boy, my brother, my son, in all but blood, would become the reason my world would crumble all over again. But that moment hadn't arrived yet. Right now we were still laughing, still building forts in the living room, still believing we had outrun the darkness. If I had known what was coming, maybe I would have held him tighter that night. Maybe I would have asked more questions, looked for the cracks, but I didn't, because sometimes love blinds you, and sometimes the person you raise becomes the person who ruins you. At first it was subtle, a missed chore here, a forgotten promise there. I didn't think much of it. After all, we were adjusting. Daniel had just started a new school, a new job, a new life. I reminded myself daily that transitions take time, but deep down I could feel it. The foundation I had built so carefully, the home, the trust, the bond, was starting to crack. It began with the silence. We used to talk every night after dinner. It became our little ritual. We'd sit on the worn-out couch, share our days, and laugh about nothing in particular. I loved those moments. They reminded me that despite everything, we were family. Then, without warning, he stopped showing up. One evening, I waited for him on that couch, 2 mugs of hot chocolate in hand. Midnight came and went. He never returned. When he finally did the next morning, he brushed past me like I was a stranger in my own home. I crashed at a friend's place. He muttered, eyes avoiding mine. A knot formed in my stomach. "Which friend?" He paused, then shrugged. "Just a guy from work." That was the first lie. I didn't know it then, but it wouldn't be the last. Over the next few weeks, Daniel changed. He was always on his phone, always locking the screen the moment I walked in. He started dressing differently, more polished, like he was trying to be someone else. He'd disappear for hours without explanation. And whenever I asked, he'd respond with the same cold, dismissive tone. "Why do you care so much?" It stung, more than I expected. I had given him everything. I had sacrificed years of my life to raise him, to keep him safe. I had fought for his education, paid for his therapy when the nightmares wouldn't stop, stood between him and a world that wanted to chew him up and spit him out. And now, he acted like none of that mattered. I remember the night it all came to a head. He had come home late again, reeking of perfume, smirking, confident in a way that didn't belong to the boy I raised. "Where were you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even. He rolled his eyes. "Out." "Out where, Daniel?" "With friends. Don't start acting like my dad." That hit harder than I thought it would. I looked at him, really looked. His eyes were distant, colder. There was arrogance in his posture, an unfamiliar edge to his voice, like he was enjoying this, like he wanted to hurt me. I didn't recognize the person standing in front of me. "I'm not your dad," I said quietly, "but I've been more of a father to you than anyone else ever was." He didn't flinch. I didn't ask you to. That sentence, it lodged itself in my chest like a shard of glass. I couldn't breathe. Why are you acting like this? I whispered. He laughed. Maybe I'm just tired of being treated like a project. Like some charity case you picked up to make yourself feel good. That was when I knew. This wasn't just teenage rebellion or growing pains. This was resentment. Deep, buried, festering resentment. And I had no idea where it had come from. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling for hours, trying to piece together what I had missed. Was I too controlling? Too protective? Had I smothered him with expectations? Or had someone gotten into his head? My mind raced with questions, but the silence between us only grew. The next morning I found my watch missing. It wasn't just any watch. It had belonged to our father, the only thing of his I ever kept. I had stored it in the top drawer of my dresser, locked, hidden, sacred, and it was gone. I confronted Daniel. He denied everything. I don't know what you're talking about, he said, eyes narrowed, but I saw the flicker of guilt just for a second. Then it vanished. I didn't have proof, but I knew. That watch meant nothing to him, but he knew what it meant to me, and that was the point. He wanted to hurt me. The cracks in the foundation were no longer hidden. They were gaping, jagged, impossible to ignore. Something inside Daniel had changed, and I didn't know how to fix it, or if I even could. For a long time, it was just us. The quiet rhythm of two brothers rebuilding a broken life day by day. Our routine was simple: work, eat, talk, sleep, laugh sometimes, argue rarely, trust always. But life has a cruel way of testing the things you think are unbreakable. I met her on a cold Thursday morning. I had stopped at the bookstore cafe downtown, a place I rarely visited, but that day I needed a quiet moment before work. She was standing by the window, flipping through a novel with chipped red nails and eyes that looked like they'd seen too much too soon. Her name was Clara. She smiled at me as if she already knew something I didn't. And maybe she did. Clara wasn't like anyone I'd ever known. She had this gravity to her. Beautiful, yes, but also magnetic in a way that made everything else seem grey in comparison. Her voice could calm a storm or start one. I fell fast. And strangely, Liam did too. From the moment I brought her home to meet him, I noticed a shift. His normally calm posture turned rigid. His smiles felt forced, his eyes never quite meeting hers. At first, I thought it was protectiveness. After all, Liam had always been cautious when it came to anyone new in our lives. But then, his protectiveness started to feel like possession. He'd linger whenever she visited, asking her oddly personal questions, challenging her opinions, interjecting into our conversations. And yet, whenever she wasn't around, he never spoke her name. Just silence. Clara noticed too. "He watches me," she said one night. "Not like your brother, but like a stranger who thinks he knows me." I wanted to laugh it off, but I couldn't, because I saw it too. The worst moment came 3 months into my relationship with her. We were all sitting in the living room, Clara, Liam, and me. The air was thick that night, like a storm about to crack open the ceiling. We were watching an old movie when Clara leaned into me, whispering a joke. I laughed, a soft, honest laugh. Liam stood up without a word and left the room. We heard the door slam, and just like that, the silence in the house changed. I confronted him the next day. "Liam, what's going on with you?" He avoided my gaze. "Nothing." "It's not nothing. You've been acting weird ever since Clara came into my life." His voice was low. "Maybe you don't see who she really is." That sentence chilled me. "Who she really is?" I asked. "She's not some con artist. She's not after money. We don't have money. She's good to me." He said nothing, just looked at me, and in his silence I saw something new: resentment. Over the next few weeks, things spiraled. Liam started coming home later. He barely spoke to Clara, barely spoke to me. But when he did, it was cold, calculated. I tried to pull him back, but it was like trying to hold on to water. And then Clara dropped the bomb. "I saw him yesterday," she said. "He was waiting for me outside my work. He said you weren't good for me, that I'd regret being with you." I couldn't breathe for a second. "What else did he say?" She hesitated. "He said you don't see how broken you still are, that you depend on me like a crutch, that I deserve someone stronger." That night, I confronted Liam again. He didn't deny it. He just stared at me, eyes full of something that made me feel like I didn't know him at all. "She's not right for you," he said. "I'm just trying to protect you." "No," I said. "You're trying to take her from me." After that night, I asked Clara to stop coming by the house, not because I didn't love her, but because I needed space to figure out what was happening with Liam. Something had cracked in him, or maybe something had always been cracked, and I had refused to see it. I started reviewing every moment we'd shared since childhood, every time I'd carried him, defended him, given up things so he wouldn't go without. Had I done too much? Had I created a man who believed everything I had belonged to him too, including the woman I loved? Weeks passed. Clara and I met outside, kept things private. I tried to keep my heart in two places, loving her and holding on to the brother I'd raised, until the night I came home early and saw her shoes by the door, her bag on the table, and their voices in my kitchen laughing. I stood there for what felt like hours, my heart a drum in my throat. When I finally walked in, they both froze. Clara's face turned pale. Liam just looked at me like he always had, like nothing was wrong, like I was the one interrupting something natural. "I was just stopping by," Clara said quickly. I nodded, and I lied. "I believe you." But in that moment, something shifted in me forever. That night I didn't sleep. I sat on the floor of my room and stared at the ceiling, and all I could think was, which of them crossed the line first, which one let it happen, and which one planned it. Because one thing was certain now, something had happened, and nothing would ever be the same again. There are betrayals that bruise, and then there are betrayals that cut so deep they change the shape of your soul. That night, after seeing Clara and Liam laughing together in our kitchen like it was their home, not mine, something inside me broke in a way I couldn't explain. I didn't confront them. I didn't shout, because deep down, I already knew what I'd find if I looked too hard. I didn't want confirmation, not yet. I spent the next few days watching them, not in the obvious sense. I didn't follow them. I didn't check her phone or his drawers, but I watched the way Liam moved in the house. How careful he was now. How quiet. I watched Clara's text replies shrink from paragraphs to single sentences. I saw the way her voice shook on our calls, how she avoided eye contact when we met in public. She was pulling away. He was sneaking closer. And I, the man who had sacrificed everything to raise a brother, was now the outsider. The confirmation came 5 days later, by accident, though part of me wonders if she wanted me to find out. It was a Saturday morning. Clara had left her jacket in my car the night before. I was going to return it, but something in me said not to. Instead, I took it inside. And when I picked it up, her phone dropped out. The screen lit up with a notification. Liam. Last night was everything. Can't stop thinking about you. I didn't unlock it. I didn't need to. My hands trembled as I stared at the screen. Not because of the message itself, but because of how unsurprised I felt, like my heart had already surrendered to the betrayal. I went to the bathroom, stared at myself in the mirror. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I smiled, a slow, bitter smile that scared even me. He took her. Not just her body, not just her time. He took the first woman I truly loved. The woman I had opened my soul to after years of shutting everyone out. He took her not because he loved her. No, He took her because she was mine, and suddenly the memory of our childhood reappeared like ghosts. The toy I got for Christmas that Liam lost. The first trophy I ever won that somehow ended up shattered. The job offer I turned down because Liam had a panic attack and needed me home. All those little moments I chalked up to coincidence, to immaturity, to brotherhood. Maybe they weren't coincidences at all. Maybe they were warning signs, and I'd been too blind to see them. I didn't talk to either of them for 3 days. Not a word. Clara messaged, called, begged me to talk. Liam, nothing. No guilt, no apology, no shame. Just silence. On the 4th day, Clara came to the house. I let her in. She looked tired, her makeup half done, her hair pulled back in haste. "Please," she said, "let me explain." I didn't speak, so she did. "It didn't start like that," she said. "He was just always around, always telling me things you never did. How much you struggled. How hard it was to love someone who's been through so much pain." She paused. I started to feel sorry for him. I stayed silent. "He kissed me first," she admitted, looking down. "I pulled away, but I didn't tell you. I didn't want to hurt you. I thought it was just a mistake." A beat passed, a long, trembling breath. But I kissed him back, later, another time. Her eyes filled, but she didn't answer. Silence. The kind that speaks louder than any confession. When she left, she took the last intact part of me with her. I sat at the edge of my bed, numb. This wasn't just about her. This was about him, the boy I raised, the boy I gave everything to, the boy I thought I'd saved. He hadn't just stolen a woman from me. He had stolen the belief that my love could ever be enough. That night, I waited for Liam. He came home past midnight, keys jingling like guilt in his pocket. He was surprised to see me awake. "Hey," he said, cautious. I looked at him for a long time, then I asked, was it worth it? His face stiffened. "I don't know what you... Don't lie." He looked away. I stood, walked slowly over to him. I could smell her perfume on his hoodie. "I gave you everything," I whispered. "I didn't mean to hurt you," he said. "But the thing about betrayal is, it's never accidental. It's always a choice." I didn't hit him. I didn't scream. I simply turned around, walked upstairs, and locked the door. Because at that moment I realized I didn't lose a girlfriend. I didn't lose a brother. I lost the illusion that I mattered to either of them. And illusions, they're harder to bury than people. There are words you say in anger, and there are words you leave unsaid because you know once they're spoken, they'll destroy whatever's left. I hadn't spoken to Liam in over a week, not a single word. And still, we lived under the same roof, same walls, same air, different planets. The silence wasn't passive, it was alive. It filled the house like smoke after a fire, every plate left unwashed. Every door closed too loudly, every hallway crossed with eyes avoiding contact. It all spoke. Liam tried in small ways. He'd knock gently on my door, leave coffee on the counter like nothing had happened, ask through the door if I wanted to talk. But I didn't. I couldn't, because if I opened that door, if I looked him in the eyes, I knew I'd say things I couldn't take back. It wasn't just heartbreak. It was identity fracture. I didn't know who I was without Liam needing me. I had poured so much of my life into being his brother, his protector, his guide, and now he was the man who had ripped open my chest and walked away with the one thing that made me feel alive. Clara had vanished. No calls, no texts, no explanations, maybe out of guilt, maybe to avoid the wreckage, or maybe because she had chosen him. And now, the space between me and my brother was no longer just emotional. It was haunted. One night I walked into the kitchen and found him sitting at the table. He looked up, startled. His eyes were red, like he hadn't slept. There was a mug in front of him, cold coffee, his hands wrapped around it like he needed to anchor himself. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen," he said softly. I said nothing. I know I ruined everything. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness." Still, silence. He exhaled. "She's gone. She won't return my calls either." Part of me wanted to feel victorious, to believe he had lost just like I had, but all I felt was empty. He looked down. "You ever feel like, no matter what you do, you're still the broken one?" I almost laughed. The broken one? That title belonged to me now. But instead of responding, I walked away. Because the truth was, I didn't want his apology. I wanted my life back. I wanted the version of Liam that never betrayed me. I wanted the illusion that family meant safety, not destruction. Over the next few days, the silence hardened. He stopped trying. I heard him come and go. Sometimes he slept in. Other times he left for hours and didn't return until late at night. I didn't ask where he went. I didn't care. Until one morning I found an envelope taped to my bedroom door. Inside was a single sheet of paper, handwritten. "I don't expect forgiveness, I don't even expect understanding, but I need you to know I never hated you. I just hated who I was around you, like I'd always be the kid you raised, never the man I wanted to be." Clara wasn't about love, she was about rebellion, about proving to myself that I could take something back. I didn't take her from you. I stole something from myself too. And I feel it now, every time I try to look in the mirror and can see. For a moment I almost crumbled because buried under all the pain, I still remembered the boy I'd held through night terrors, the teenager I taught how to shave, the young man I cheered for at graduation. But then I remembered Clara's hands in his voice on her phone, and I folded the letter, put it in a drawer, not because I forgave him, but because I needed to survive this. One night during a storm, the power went out. I sat on the couch with a single candle lit, and I heard footsteps. Liam entered the room, silent. He sat on the floor across from me. The flickering flame painted shadows on our faces. He didn't speak. Neither did I. But in that silence, something shifted, not healed, not forgiven, but maybe acknowledged. Because sometimes silence isn't punishment. It's a grave. And that night we both sat in mourning, not just for Clara, but for the version of us that had died. I thought the worst was over. After Liam walked out, I expected silence, peace maybe. Even loneliness would have been a relief compared to betrayal. But peace never came. Because the truth has roots that run deeper than any of us know. And sometimes, what poisons the present isn't what someone did, but what they were never told. A few days after the confrontation, I got a call from Aunt Teresa. She was my mother's sister, and we hadn't spoken in years. Not out of anger, just distance. But the moment I picked up, I heard something different in her voice. "Can I come over?" she asked. I didn't hesitate. She arrived with a faded photo album under her arm, and a look in her eyes I hadn't seen since the funeral. We sat in silence for a moment, the kind that wraps around grief like an old coat. Then she spoke. "I heard about Liam." I didn't respond. She continued. "There's something I need to tell you, something your mother never did." That's when I felt it, the chill, the drop in my stomach, like the air in the room shifted and knew something I didn't. She opened the album, old pictures, our childhood, Mom and Dad, me as a toddler, then Liam, chubby cheeks, always smiling. She pointed at one picture in particular. It was of our mom in a hospital bed, holding Liam as a newborn. But something was off. The date, it didn't match. He was born earlier than I remembered. Months earlier. Aunt Teresa looked at me, hesitant. "Liam isn't your full brother," she said gently. My heart stopped. "Your mother got pregnant after your father had an affair. Liam's not his son." I blinked. "You're saying he's not my brother?" "No," she said. "He's your half-brother. Same mother, different father." The room spun. Everything tilted in my mind. "What do you mean?" She sighed. All the moments we shared, all the sacrifices, all the guilt I had felt, and then All the rage came roaring back. "He knew?" I asked. Aunt Teresa hesitated, then nodded. She told him when he was 16. She thought he should know. 16, the year he started acting different, pulling away, getting angry for no reason. And suddenly, it made sense. The resentment in his eyes, the unspoken competition, the bitterness. He didn't just betray me, he'd felt like an outsider all along. I stood up, pacing. "So that's it? He hated me because of a secret I didn't even know?" "It's more complicated than that," she said softly. "Your mother never told you because she didn't want it to change how you saw him. She wanted you to love him like your own." I laughed bitterly. I did love him like my own. I raised him like a son. And maybe that was the cruelest part. All my love had been built on a lie. Aunt Teresa got up, touched my arm. "You have every right to be angry, but don't let this turn you into someone your mother wouldn't recognize." She left soon after, leaving behind the photo album, the secret, and a man who no longer knew what he was grieving, a brother, a lie, or his own failure. That night I stared at that same photo for hours, my mother's eyes in it. They looked tired, but full of something else. Shame, regret, or just fear that the truth would break us apart. Maybe it didn't matter anymore, because it already had. The betrayal wasn't just Liam's anymore. It was my mother's, my family's, my entire history. Everything I thought I knew was now twisted by shadows. And yet, in that chaos, a single question began to form. Was Liam's betrayal born from cruelty, or from the crushing weight of never feeling like he belonged? I didn't know the answer yet, but I knew one thing. The story between us wasn't finished, and next time we saw each other, it wouldn't be just about what he did to me. It would be about what life did to both of us. The morning after I found out the truth, everything looked different. The sunlight that once spilled warmly across the kitchen floor now felt like an interrogation light. The walls of our home, my home, seemed to whisper betrayal through the silence. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of the couch where Leo used to crash when he first moved in. My hands trembled with every image that ran through my mind. His lies, their stolen moments, and that one photo I found on her old phone. He had taken my life apart, brick by brick. And for what? Love? Power? A sense of entitlement? I wasn't even sure anymore. All I knew was that silence was no longer enough. He needed to know what it felt like to lose everything. I began planning, not out of impulse, but with cold, calculated clarity. This wasn't just about getting even. This was about giving him something he could never forget. The feeling of standing in the ruins of something he once believed was his future. I waited until he came to the house to pick up a few of his things. He stood in the doorway, sheepish, eyes lowered like a kid who'd broken a window. I didn't say a word as he walked past me. I only watched. "Thanks for letting me grab my stuff," he muttered. "I didn't do it for you," I said flatly. "I did it so I could watch you take it piece by piece, like you did with my life." He froze. There was a pause long enough to let the shame crawl up his back. Then he spoke. "You don't understand. It wasn't meant to happen. She—" "Stop," I interrupted. "Don't you dare use her as your excuse. Don't you dare put this on her. You knew what she meant to me, and you looked me in the eye every day while you lied." He couldn't look at me. The first step of my plan was professional. I had introduced Leo to the company I worked for, helped him get his foot in the door when no one else would hire a 19-year-old kid with no experience. And over the years, I'd vouched for him, helped him rise, built his credibility with mine. So I went to my boss with everything, every detail I could gather about Leo. Recent actions that crossed ethical lines, internal shortcuts, manipulative behavior, documents altered to serve his ambition. I wasn't even sure how far it would go, but I didn't care. The only thing I wanted was for him to lose the one thing he had left, his future. He was suspended pending investigation 2 days later. I didn't celebrate. I didn't smile. The ache in my chest hadn't lessened. If anything, it had grown. Revenge didn't feel like victory, it felt like slow poison. But I couldn't stop. I had one more move left. I visited her grave. Yes, her grave. Julia had died in a car accident just 3 months after everything came to light. A drunk driver, a rainy night, and a shattered family. We hadn't spoken since I confronted her and kicked her out of the apartment. I never got closure. And now, I never would. I stood there staring at the stone. My voice cracked as I spoke. "You broke me," I whispered. "And I still can't stop loving you. Isn't that pathetic?" I sank to my knees. I didn't get to forgive you. I didn't get to yell at you again. You left with him still breathing. It was in that moment that I realized something terrifying. My hate for Leo wasn't just about the betrayal. It was about her death. It was misplaced grief, displaced love. I'd given them both so much of me that I didn't know who I was without them. When I got home, I found him sitting on my porch. Leo, eyes red, clothes disheveled, the shell of the confident, smug younger brother I once knew. "I lost everything," he said when I opened the door. "I know," I replied. "I deserved it." "Yes, you did." He nodded. "But I also lost you, and that's the part I regret the most." For a moment I felt the urge to hit him, to scream, to make him feel the depths of what he'd done. But then I remembered Julia's smile. I remembered her last message, unread until after her death. She'd written, "I wish I hadn't let everything fall apart. I miss who we used to be." Maybe, just maybe, revenge had done what it needed to do. Maybe now all that was left was what would come after. I stepped aside and opened the door. "Come inside," I said. His eyes widened. "Why?" "Because I need to tell you a story. And when I'm done, you'll understand the cost of your choices." That night, I told him everything. From the day he moved in as a scared little boy, to the way I protected him from our mother's breakdowns, to the sacrifices I made so he could have a shot at life. By the time I finished, he was crying. "I didn't know," he kept repeating. "I didn't know how much you gave up for me. I didn't do it to get anything back," I said. "I did it because I believed in you." He looked at me, broken, and I realized something. He wasn't my enemy. He was a stranger wearing the face of someone I used to love. The house was quiet the next morning, except for the soft hiss of the coffee machine and the ticking of the clock above the mantel. Leo had slept on the couch. Not that either of us got much rest. After everything that had come out the night before, sleep felt like a luxury neither of us deserved. I watched him stir, eyes slowly opening to the unfamiliar ceiling, and for a second I saw the kid he used to be, the one who clung to my arm during storms, who begged me to read the same bedtime story over and over. Before everything went dark, he sat up, rubbing his face. "Is this real, or did I just dream all of that?" "It's real," I said. We sat in silence for a while, the kind that settles between people who we run out of accusations but still carry the weight of everything unsaid. "I've been thinking," I finally said, "about who you were, who I thought you were, and who you became." He nodded, ashamed. "I think about that every day." "You know," I said, "I didn't raise you to be a traitor. I didn't raise you to take what wasn't yours. I raised you to have what I never did: stability, family, safety." "I know," he whispered, "and I would have kept giving that to you forever, until the end." We moved outside, sitting on the back steps of the porch, where we used to play cards and talk about life. The garden Julia had planted was still blooming, stubbornly refusing to die, just like the pieces of her in me. "She really loved you," I said, looking at a wild rose bush she once adored. "And I think part of her always will." Leo buried his face in his hands. "I didn't mean to fall for her. It just happened." She was there. You were always busy. I know that doesn't justify it, but I was selfish. I thought she saw me, really saw me. She did, I said, surprising even myself. That's the problem. He looked at me stunned. I used to believe love was something you earned, by being good, loyal, selfless. But maybe love, real love, isn't about what you earn. Maybe it's about who you reveal in people. He shook his head. She revealed the worst in me. No, I said, my voice steadier than expected. She revealed someone I didn't know, someone I didn't raise. He looked down. I raised a boy who survived more than any child should, who carried pain like it was normal, who wanted so badly to be seen and loved that he lost himself in someone else's arms. That's who I raised. Tears filled his eyes. But the man you became, I paused. He's a stranger. He stood up then, pacing the yard like he used to when he was nervous before job interviews or school presentations. What do I do now? He asked. You've taken everything, my job, my pride, my future. I didn't take it, I said firmly. You threw it away. You set it on fire. I just made sure you couldn't pretend it never happened. He nodded. So this is it then. We go back to pretending we're not brothers. I stood too. No, we don't pretend anything anymore. We don't pretend we're fine. We don't pretend we forgive. We just live with the truth. He looked at me like he was searching for something, mercy maybe, or understanding. But all I had left was the brutal honesty we'd never dared to face before. I raised you with love, but you're not that boy anymore, and I can't raise you again. We packed his things in silence. This time he didn't ask for anything more. He didn't beg. He didn't try to justify it all again. He simply picked up the pieces of his life and walked to the door. But before he left, he turned. Will you ever forgive me? He asked. I looked him in the eye. I don't know. He nodded. That's fair. And will you forgive yourself? I asked. That question seemed to knock the wind out of him. I don't know either. And then he left. Weeks passed. I returned to my routine, work, errands, long walks through the neighborhood at night when sleep refused to come. I started therapy. I donated Julia's clothes. I deleted the photos I couldn't bear to see anymore, but printed one to keep in a drawer. A picture of the three of us laughing at a barbecue before the world cracked open. I didn't hear from Leo again, until one day an envelope arrived in my mailbox. No return address. Inside was a letter, handwritten. I've left the city. I'm starting over. You were right. I need to rebuild from nothing. I've taken a job cleaning boats at a marina down south. It's hard work, humbling, but it's honest. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know I'm trying to become someone you'd be proud of, even if you never see me again. Thank you for raising me. I'm sorry I became someone unworthy of it. I held the letter for a long time, unsure of what to feel. A part of me wanted to burn it. Another part wanted to frame it. In the end, I just put it in the same drawer where Julia's photo lived, side by side, two reminders of everything I lost and everything I survived. The house was quiet the next morning, except for the soft hiss of the coffee machine and the ticking of the clock above the mantel. Leo had slept on the couch. Not that either of us got much rest. After everything that had come out the night before, sleep felt like a luxury neither of us deserved. I watched him stir, eyes slowly opening to the unfamiliar ceiling, and for a second I saw the kid he used to be, the one who clung to my arm during storms, who begged me to read the same bedtime story over and over. Before everything went dark, he sat up, rubbing his face. Is this real, or did I just dream all of that? It's real, I said. We sat in silence for a while, the kind that settles between people who we run out of accusations but still carry the weight of everything unsaid. I've been thinking, I finally said, about who you were, who I thought you were. and who you became." He nodded, ashamed. "I think about that every day." "You know," I said, "I didn't raise you to be a traitor. I didn't raise you to take what wasn't yours. I raised you to have what I never did: stability, family, safety." "I know," he whispered, "and I would have kept giving that to you forever, until the end." We moved outside, sitting on the back steps of the porch, where we used to play cards and talk about life. The garden Julia had planted was still blooming, stubbornly refusing to die, just like the pieces of her in me. "She really loved you," I said, looking at a wild rose bush she once adored. "And I think part of her always will." Leo buried his face in his hands. "I didn't mean to fall for her. It just happened. She was there. You were always busy. I know that doesn't justify it, but I was selfish. I thought she saw me, really saw me." "She did," I said, surprising even myself. "That's the problem." He looked at me, stunned. "I used to believe love was something you earned, by being good, loyal, selfless. But maybe love, real love, isn't about what you earn. Maybe it's about who you reveal in people." He shook his head. "She revealed the worst in me." "No," I said, my voice steadier than expected. "She revealed someone I didn't know, someone I didn't raise." He looked down. "I raised a boy who survived more than any child should, who carried pain like it was normal, who wanted so badly to be seen and loved that he lost himself in someone else's arms. That's who I raised." Tears filled his eyes. "But the man you became—" I paused. "He's a stranger." He stood up then, pacing the yard like he used to when he was nervous before job interviews or school presentations. "What do I do now?" he asked. "You've taken everything, my job, my pride, my future." "I didn't take it," I said firmly. "You threw it away. You set it on fire. I just made sure you couldn't pretend it never happened." He nodded. "So this is it then. We go back to pretending we're not brothers." I stood too. "No, we don't pretend anything anymore. We don't pretend we're fine. We don't pretend we forgive. We just live with the truth." He looked at me like he was searching for something, mercy maybe, or understanding. But all I had left was the brutal honesty we'd never dared to face before. "I raised you with love, but you're not that boy anymore, and I can't raise you again." We packed his things in silence. This time he didn't ask for anything more. He didn't beg. He didn't try to justify it all again. He simply picked up the pieces of his life and walked to the door. But before he left, he turned. "Will you ever forgive me?" he asked. I looked him in the eye. "I don't know." He nodded. "That's fair." "And will you forgive yourself?" I asked. That question seemed to knock the wind out of him. "I don't know either." And then he left. Weeks passed. I returned to my routine: work, errands, long walks through the neighborhood at night when sleep refused to come. I started therapy. I donated Julia's clothes. I deleted the photos I couldn't bear to see anymore, but printed one to keep in a drawer. A picture of the three of us laughing at a barbecue before the world cracked open. I didn't hear from Leo again, until one day an envelope arrived in my mailbox. No return address. Inside was a letter, handwritten. "I've left the city. I'm starting over. You were right. I need to rebuild from nothing. I've taken a job cleaning boats at a marina down south. It's hard work, humbling, but it's honest. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know I'm trying to become someone you'd be proud of, even if you never see me again. Thank you for raising me. I'm sorry I became someone unworthy of it." I held the letter for a long time, unsure of what to feel. A part of me wanted to burn it. Another part wanted to frame it. In the end, I just put it in the same drawer where Julia's photo lived, side by side. Two reminders of everything I lost and everything I survived. 1 year later, I stood in the same garden. The roses were blooming again, brighter than ever. A neighbor's child ran through the yard, laughing, chasing a butterfly. For a moment, the world felt whole. I thought of Leo. I thought of the boy I raised, and I whispered to no one in particular, I raised a stranger, but I also raised a soul, broken, flawed, and capable of redemption, just like the rest of us. If this story moved you, don't keep it to yourself. Comment below with, I felt this too, and subscribe for more stories that uncover the deepest betrayals and the power to rise after them. Because here we don't just tell stories, we give voice to pain and to healing.